All right. Well, welcome back, everyone. We now have the opportunity to hear from Stephen Pruitt, who's the Executive Director from the Southern Regional Board of Education. I will tell you, I love all of our presenters. You're just in for another treat. Stephen, he's so engaging. And I also have to say, too, that I do think it's kind of funny that Sorry, I had to pick up one of my papers that fell. That for our conference this morning, our first three speakers are a Stephen, a Steve, and a Stephen. So here we go. Without any further ado, I am turning it over to Stephen.
Good morning, and thank you, Kelly. Always great to spend time with you and with the STEM Leadership Alliance. This is actually one of my favorite things to do each year, so I'm always just so proud and honored that you let me continue to do that. So I've been asked to talk a little bit about the future of and so I'm going to share my screen here and go through this. And of course, if you have questions, feel free to send those in. I will be glad to answer those as I go. Sorry, I'm getting used to this screen here. What I'd like to do is just kind of get started here with, Kelly, I'm sorry, I think
It is live, so we do see your screen. Great.
Okay, yeah.
And now we have lost. There you are.
Here I am. All right, I'm trying to get my screen to move. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I see your screen.
Okay.
And is it into the PowerPoint there?
It should be.
Okay, and you would just use it normally like a regular PowerPoint where you would just click, you could try clicking enter.
There we go. Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Sorry, gang. There's nothing like this about fantastic technology at a STEM conference that I clearly messed up on. So here's what I want to do. I want to start talking about understanding the new research related to STEM. So I'm going to take you through some of the research that we've been doing and some of the things that we've been noticing around the country and in particular around the South. So the Southern Regional Education Board, for those of you that don't know, we are an interstate compact of 16 southern states. We started in Delaware, go down to Florida, go over to Texas, back up again through Arkansas, Kentucky, and West Virginia. And our job is, we were created actually to help improve the economic vitality of the South through education back in 1948. So part of our charge by our governors and by our legislators and our educational leaders is to support them in education. So a big part of that is we have to start thinking about how do we change the workforce or how do we change education to meet the workforce needs of the future. Now, I'm going to start with a little bit of a depressing thing and it's a little bit scary, but what I want to do for you is set up why this is so incredibly important that we do really rethink how we're approaching education. So the big thing is by 2030, for every 53 dependent people in the U.S., there will be 47 working age adults to provide for them. Now, to be clear, that's 53 age dependent. So in other words, people who are below 18 and people who are above 65. So the thing is, back in 2017, and even today in 2020, you see that we have more people who are actually working that are working age that are able to contribute to Social Security, to Medicaid, all those things to be able to take care of those that are under 25 and those that are over 65. But by 2030, for every 53 of those age-dependent individuals, we'll have 47 working age. Now, that's a big deal because you think about the fact that right now, we already see some struggles with things around our social programs. This is going to continue to get worse because we have more and more individuals who slip into those age groups. Now, here's the thing. That's age dependent only. That doesn't include any type of disability. It doesn't include the things that we're about to talk about. So if you're interested, if you go to srev.org and you go to our workforce page, you can actually look at our reports around unprepared and unaware and our region's economic outlook, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a moment. There are about more than 50 million people that work in our southern regional states. Most of them will be affected by automation in the coming decades. See, here's the thing. Right now, everybody's thinking, oh, we got to change STEM. COVID's a big deal. Of course it is. COVID has changed the world for us. But here's the deal. By 2030, because of automation and artificial intelligence and how the workforce is going to change, this is going to be much bigger than COVID in terms of the impact of people being able to go to work. So this is something that we really got to pay a lot of attention to. In fact, what I would say is where 2030 we sort of set as a horizon, it's now the next exit. You see, at least 30% of work activities and 60% of the jobs are automatable already. 5% of jobs are completely automated. And between 23 and 44% of work activities may be automated by 2030. Now, let me take you back a little bit. This is what happened during the recession that ended roughly in 2010. So here we're going to look at entry-level positions by minimum education level. So what you can see is during the recession, we saw that if you had a bachelor's degree or higher, during the recession, there were actually about 400,000 jobs that were added. And since recovery up through 2016, there were over 4 million jobs that were added. If you had an associate degree or some college, 1.2 million were added. Now, there were about 300 jobs that were lost during. But here's the horrifying thing. If you had a high school diploma or less, there were 7.3 million jobs that were lost. Since recovery or through 2016, only 8 million jobs actually were reestablished. This one to me is actually the scariest one. So employment loss and gains by education level. So again, during the recession, if you had a college degree or higher, 187,000 people gained jobs, with 8.4 million people since from recovery through 2016. If you had some college or an associate's degree, there was a loss of 1.8 million, and then there ultimately was a gain of 3.1. But here's the thing. If you had a high school diploma or less, we saw where 5.6 million people lost their jobs during the recession. Only 80,000 people got those jobs back. Now you go, well, why is that? How is it that you end up with just that many people getting their jobs back? Because business, we've all heard the saying, traveling at the speed of business. Well, if they couldn't afford to have people, they found ways around that. If you look at what we're experiencing right now with COVID, you see that there is actually already a big change. Back in March, healthcare was ordering face shields from mass manufacturing. Now we see where colleges, universities, and even individuals with their own 3D printer are printing their own face shields at home. So what happens is people find new ways to get moving. Now here's the thing. In our study, we saw that these individuals ages 25 to 35 who had a high school diploma or less were at the greatest risk of losing their job because of automation and not being prepared to be in the jobs. See, everybody thinks about, the joke is always not even a joke. What people have thought is robots are going to kick humans out of their jobs. That's actually not the case. There's actually going to be more jobs. The question is going to be, will there be people to actually have the skills to be able to be in those jobs? Now, the other horrifying thing is if you think about these individuals ages 25 to 35 and you look at the ages of their children, they're going to be graduating high school around 2030. Those children are 10 times as likely to get the same type of education level and job as their parents had. So we are looking at a potential multi-generational crisis if we're not careful. So you can see that overall, if you had some college, associate's degree, bachelor's degree, and all this, understand, bachelor's and associate's degree, all that includes industry certifications, that includes associate's degrees, that includes any type of specialized training that allows you to move forward in a middle to high skill job that has quality pay. See, automation potential in SREB, our top 5 industries currently are production, transportation, sales, food, service and preparation, and office and administration. And here's the thing. In production, 86% of that is going to be automatable. Transportation, 63%. We're already seeing where there are driverless Ubers. There are driverless tractor trailers. Sales, 42%. In food, service, and preparation, 69%. Already, people, if you've been able to go into a McDonald's lately, you've seen where there are already a major barrier between individuals because you go in and order basically on a giant iPad. Office administrative work continues to go up, 64%. See, in our top 5 industries in the South, 26 million of those workers, 52% of the whole region, 11 million or 42% have a high school diploma or less. So in the South, and this is where our research really focuses, but this is not going to be any different than the rest of the country. Certainly, there are places that have higher college attainment percentages. There are certainly places where there are greater industry certification and degrees. But at the end of the day, you're talking about us having to reshape how we're thinking about education. So what happens if we do nothing? What if we continue on the track that we're on? Now, I'm about to click this button, and I'm going to tell you this is pretty scary. In just the SREB region, if things stay the way they are, most of the 50 million workers in the region will be affected by automation. And it's very possible and very likely that 18 million unemployable adults would be in the system in 2030. I'm going to say that again. By 2030, we may have 18 million unemployable adults. That's not unemployed. That's unemployable. That means that they have no ability to have a job because they don't have the preparation necessary to be able to do so. So, yeah, this is a pretty horrifying thing. You see, here's the thing. Most fields rely or will rely on STEM. In fact, we've always talked about doctors, nurses, lab techs, med techs. We've talked about scientists, engineers, and psychologists. But here's the reality, gang. Plumbers, electricians, carpenters, mechanics, all of those folks, they are going to be relying completely on STEM-related ideas, on being able to think the way STEM prepares them to think. It's about problem solving. It's about shifting from just the work with your hands and becoming work with your mind. So all of these ideas that we think about STEM in the past, that's all changing, which means if we don't shift how we think about education, then we're really going to be facing a problem in the U.S. So the challenge, see, we've actually entered the 4th industrial revolution. The first one started with mechanical production. We had steam, we had water power. The second one became mass production by using electricity. In the third, it was the digital age of IT and electronics. But see, here's the thing. In the 4th industrial revolutions, we actually specifically see robots learning from humans. In fact, robots are not really working for us anymore. They're working with us. So our cyber physical systems are shifting this to a point that, again, there are going to be jobs. But if we don't adopt this mentality that we can't simply say, well, we're going to wait and teach science in middle school or high school, or we're going to continue to teach science and math the way we've always taught it without some type of connection to a career, then we're going to be in a lot of problems by 2030. So how do we provide more young people with an education that connects classroom with the workplace and prepares them to succeed in post-secondary education and in-demand careers? The reality is we have to transform education with rigorous, relevant career pathways that align secondary, post-secondary, and workplace learning that lead to post-secondary credentials. Now, those credentials could be anything from welding to a baccalaureate to a doctorate. But the point is we've got to shift our population to help them see the relevance of what they're doing in K-12 and prepare them for a career. So for us at SREB, we're saying we've got to double the percentage of young adults who earn post-secondary credentials by age 25 over the next decade. You see, there are 5 really essential elements to this. And I know some of you are maybe thinking, well, what's this got to do with STEM? Think back to what I've been saying. All of this has to do with STEM. You see, I'm not even sure that STEM is going to be a thing of its own. In the 4th Industrial Revolution, it really is all about STEM. So we have to rethink how we're approaching this. Remember when I said 53 out of 50 for every 53 individuals, there are only 47 working age? Think if we have 18 million unemployable adults. That ratio gets more disparate. So here's the thing. We believe that 5 essential elements to this is that we combine a college-ready academic core with challenging technical studies and require students to complete real-world assignments. So the days of academics being on one hall and CTE being on another, we've got to start blurring those lines a lot more. We've got to give kids more of an opportunity. We need to align the 3 stages of learning. We've got to change from thinking about just what I do in my classroom to aligning K-12 with post-secondary with workforce and seeing what they need. We need to create better guidance systems. In other words, we need to let guidance counselors be guidance counselors. And that needs to start in middle school. Kids have to start to see that there are multiple opportunities for them in the workforce. We have to do a better job with equity. We have to really have a focus on ensuring that students of color and students of poverty are able to see a future for themselves. And we've got to have a greater focus on finding or to getting individuals into those various workplaces so that students of color and students in poverty can actually see people that look like them and come from their backgrounds as in that career, and it gives them that vision for where to go. You know, there's the whole, if I can't see it, I can't be it. We've got to think better about this. We've got to do a better job of recruiting teachers. We've got to do a better job of recruiting into the workforce. We have to have more accelerated options. This is AP, IB. These are 3rd and 4th year CTE courses. These are post-secondary, or this is dual enrollment. So we've got to stop being so exclusive. We've got to take a look at our policies and ensure that what we're doing is not prohibiting students from getting into those areas. We've got to make sure that our students of color and students of poverty are not being left out simply because we thought some type of policy was a good idea back in the 90s. This is actually about inclusion. But it's not inclusion for the sake of just doing inclusion. It's because every child has a right to see their own version of the American dream. And finally, we've got to focus education opportunities to lead to further education and training in high skill, high wage, and high demand industries. In other words, we've got to help people see that the things that they're doing in K-12 lead somewhere. You see, at the end of the day, everything we do should be preparing kids for a job. Now, for some kids, that job may come at the end of high school. For some, that may come at the end of college. For some, it will come at the end of an industry certification in mechanics or in welding. But we've got to be able to see that. And they've got to understand going into this, what are those high-demand industries and what types of opportunities do they have in terms of salary. So how do you do that? How do you go about really developing career pathways? The first thing is you want to identify and engage key stakeholders and define the goals of a career pathway system. Now, again, everybody thinks career pathways and they start thinking CTE. Folks, I'm telling you, I wish I had had an opportunity in high school to explore more about education or to explore more about chemistry. Those were my 2 loves. So we're not talking about just revamping CTE. This is about revamping schools to give kids an opportunity to experience what's coming in the future. Second thing is mapping and assessing career readiness policies, programs, and industries, specifically looking to make sure that we're not having things that are exclusive and not having things that are inadvertently, and let's be honest, in some cases, maybe were designed implicitly to prevent some students from having access. We have to identify the knowledge, skills, dispositions, and competencies for careers. See, here's the thing. If you know math to be able to do welding, I think we've got to rethink how we're approaching this. In other words, maybe a kid can show that they know math while they're in welding class. Now, that doesn't mean we get rid of math. It doesn't mean that we get rid of the state assessments in math. But maybe we should start finding ways for kids to show their proficiencies in other ways too. Maybe we should realize that just like a kid one time when I was the Commissioner of Education in Kentucky showed me how he designed my name in a plasma welder and cut my name, Dr. Pruitt, into this large piece of metal. In that, he was talking to me about the properties of the metal. He was talking to me about having to calculate the angles. The kid, while he was doing it, actually gave me a great lesson in structure and properties of matter, in science, in chemistry, and in physics to a certain degree. And he gave me a great message in trigonometry. And when I told him I bet his math teachers loved him, he said, "Oh, I hate math. I don't really see a use for it. I'm not very good at it." And I'm like, "Dude, you just did trig." But he never saw the connection. So we have to think about that differently. And then fourth, we've got a plan for implementation and continuous improvement. This is going to be something that's going to take a long time, and it's got to be a commitment to a lot of people, by a lot of people. But here's the thing, the change is hard. Everyone is busy, and I'm telling you, if you're really going to go about this, you need everybody. You've got historical barriers between school, between college, between industry. You have the natural distrust that happens between those levels. And to be honest with you, you often have a little bit of arrogance that happens in between those levels. And we got to break those down. We have to get rid of competing agendas about funding and about all that other stuff and quit competing and actually go to collaborating. We have to improve our communication. We have to deal with the fact that we are seeing declining money in our and also just resources in general. The next few years, gang, is going to be tough. We've seen massive amounts of funds and deficits in budgets from in states. So it's going to be a rough few years. But now's the time for us to go forward with planning. Now's the time for us to get ready. Because I'm telling you, if we miss this opportunity, we may not get another one. And I know some of you are going, this is not an opportunity, this has been a crisis. It has. And I don't diminish that at all. But I also say this is the time for us to think differently. With us pushing more students to blended learning or to online learning, what could we do with that? We have to think about inefficient program alignment and delivery, where kids are actually having trouble transferring dual enrollment or even just transferring between community colleges in 4 years. Time is an enemy because everybody wants to get it done yesterday. It's going to take you at least 12 months. And it does require persistence. I'm just going to share with you very quickly in Georgia, this has been done. There was in a lot of our states, there's a big need for nursing. And what happened was all these people that you see here came together and said, we need a nursing career pathway. And they decided they were going to change how they were approaching high school. Actually, they started in middle school and change how they did it. They were going to work together to get the curriculum right, to get the standards right, to get the proficiencies right. Then they were going to allow students to enter into dual enrollment in high school and guarantee that those dual enrollment credits were going to count toward a program. And then they were going to allow those credits to transfer. And in doing so, they have presented a new opportunity for our students. That opportunity is a system of off-ramps, not a system of on-ramps. In other words, it gives students the actual opportunity to decide this is where as far as I want to go. So in high school, students start in 9th grade, and they have as much as 26 hours of dual credit by the time they graduate. But here's the thing. Every community college and every college has agreed that they would take those credits for universal transfer. The credential they end up with is the nursing assistant. Very typical coming out of high school. And the employment, here's the thing, and this was the key. WellStar is the biggest healthcare provider in the state of Georgia. They were at the table, and they basically guaranteed that if those students went through this, there would be a place for them to go to work. Technical college, they could get 68 hours, they could get their LPN, and they could go to the university and get their bachelor's. In other words, students have the opportunity to choose. I'm good with the nursing assistant, I'm good with the LPN, or I'm good with the bachelor's. But the student makes the choice, not the adults. So again, you end up with this system of off-ramps. And I do believe this is going to be the way we have to move. We have to start thinking more in terms of being able to give students opportunities to move at their pace, but giving them an extra opportunity to know their aptitudes and how to move forward. So I'm going to go back to this, and I'm going to be ending with this, and then I'm happy to take questions. We are in this fourth industrial revolution. We are facing a pretty significant, a majorly significant event if we're not careful. I know this is early in the morning to get news like this. I know that I know I would much rather be actually very inspirational and optimistic. And it sounds like maybe I haven't been. In fact, with talking about the 18 million unemployables and talking about all of these changes that are going to have to make it could be very easily be taken the wrong way. My point in all of this is to say, look, we need to make change. But we can. Everything that we do ultimately can be for the betterment of our students. You see, I've said many times that students are they're not simply there because we need jobs. Teachers go into this job because they know that they are the people that stand between I can and I can't. They're the people who stand in the difference between I'm possible and impossible. We can get this done, but it's going to take everybody. We can actually make incredible educational opportunities for our students. We can do it in making sure that all of our students who have color and students of poverty and each student that walks into our classroom has an incredible opportunity to be something special and to see a version of themselves that they may not have known was possible before coming into our classrooms. But it is going to take time, it's going to take focus, and it's going to take persistence. So the research around where STEM is it really there's not going to be a time that STEM's not needed, whether it be in K-12 and post-secondary, but most assuredly the workforce. STEM is critical. If you do not have the emphasis of STEM, if you don't experience it in a way that it's integrated, meaning that you don't have science on one period, math in another period, but actually really understanding how that fits together, we are not setting our students up for the greatest experience in our economy. So, Kelly, I am so thankful for the opportunity to be with you, and I'm happy to take questions. I am not sure exactly. I'm going to try to stop and go back to my camera and see if I can see any questions here. Well, apparently I only have 1 minute remaining. Sorry about that, Kelly. I thought I had gone a little bit faster than I should have. Actually, I think those are old questions. So, Kelly, are you still on the line? Oh, here we go. I see the questions now. Is it possible for other regions of the country without SREB to advance as you've described? Absolutely it is. Absolutely it is. First of all, there are actually other compacts around the country. But I do believe that one of the things that really came about with SREB is the states came together and said, we can't do this by ourselves. We actually need to do this together. And so I think that it may start with a grassroots effort where we actually see schools coming together, districts coming together. But there is definitely an opportunity and I think a necessity that we figure out how to work on this together. Another question, how do we help academic institutions realize that the workforce is not a bad term and collaborate? Wow, what a great question, Christine Royce. It goes on both sides here. First of all, there's a key part of this, and that's data sharing. I was very lucky in Kentucky. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that rhyme there. That I was able to bring, because of the system we had there of data sharing, I was able to actually even change our accountability system to reward districts who were working with industry and producing students who had opportunities to go into high need fields. Because I could not just look at the top 5 industries for the state, I could look at the top 5 within a county or within a district. So data sharing is actually a big part. Realizing that workforce is not is not a bad term. That is going to take time. It's relationship building like everything else. It's actually helping people see that. And I think right now again is kind of a prime time. We're all nervous about what our colleges are going to be facing with the economic downturn. This may be the opportunity for people to start to realize, gosh, you know what? We actually need to be moving forward with having relationships. Some of it, Christine, might even be that somebody like you starts bringing those industries in just to start having meetings and start learning from one another. But it is a challenge. And I will share this with you. In Georgia, the reason all that happened is we had a state legislator that said, we're going to make this happen, or I'm going to write a bill that would make you. So it could be that they might need a little nudge. Catherine Weber said many of elementary teachers are not comfortable with teaching STEM. Often there seems to be a push to have specifically trained STEM teachers. However, with PD such as ITEA, it can change the culture. It'd be a great foundation. And you know what? I agree with you, Catherine. In fact, I think that it's really important that we actually kind of pause for a second and I'm just going to be honest with you here, gang, and this is not going to be a popular comment. We worry about our elementary teachers, but folks, let me tell you something. We need to focus on K-12. As commissioner, one of my things was you had to take me when I visited your school to a non-tested science class, which was scary for a lot of people because they had to find them in some cases. But I will tell you this, I saw some pretty incredible STEM instruction in those elementary classes. And I'm going to be honest with you, there were a whole lot of high school classes that I still walked in and I saw people still just simply teaching the 4 phases of mitosis and not really equating that back to why it mattered or to a career. So yeah, I agree. It's actually, we need to do a better job of foundations in elementary, but we also need to realize that we need to work around the board. Other questions? Because I believe my time is almost up. I think 10:45 was actually when I was supposed to do it. Jim Ford had one. Jim, I'm looking for one. Maybe put it back in there. Oh. I see one. Jim, I found it. At a recent MIT Educators Conference, they talked about how high-achieving, underrepresented computer science students need more human capital in order to stay engaged through college and get their degrees. How do I feel about the human capital building as it relates to success for all? Jim, I would say touchdown. That is a great, great point. There's got to be a greater emphasis on the human capital building part. In fact, I'll share this with you. One of the programs we have at SREB that I'm most proud of is called our Doctoral Scholars Program. And in that, what we do is we provide some resources, but most of all, we provide mentoring for students of color to get their PhDs and to move into academia. We had our 1,000th graduate this past year. Our students tend to get their PhDs in less than 4.5 years, where the national average is over 6. And it's all because of the human capital. It's all because we invest and we're very intentional about being supportive for these students who are underrepresented, who may have in the past not seen this as a real opportunity for them, or that they even saw this as something that was in their ability to do. And so, Jim, thank you for that question. It was a great question. That is critical. And I mentioned counseling earlier. There's got to be a greater investment in social and emotional work for supporting of students through counseling, but also we've got to come out and take folks by the hand sometimes and lead them through. Our mantra with doctoral scholars is we're not just a handshake and a paycheck. They are stuck with us for quite a while. So thank you, Jim, for that question. It was a great one. So I guess with that, Kelly, do I turn it back over to you?
You do. There I am, I think. So, and we have you there. Okay, there we go. Oh, wait. Okay, so I want to thank you, Stephen, very much. And stay tuned because Stephen's going to be back with us again. And, I never get tired of hearing what you have to say and all of the information you have to share, because I think it is so relevant and gives us a lot to think about, too.
Thank you, Kelly. I appreciate it. Look forward to talking a little NGSS with people tomorrow and some good instructional strategies. So thank you.
Great. Thank you.